Welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we have a different topic from biomechanics as our point of interest, that is the biomechanics of peripheral nerves. Alright, we often know about peripheral nerves, we know about central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, but can you imagine, or have you ever thought about the biomechanics of peripheral nerves? Do you think that they have some biomechanical properties? I believe we haven't so far, many of us haven't. But of course, biomechanical properties are there for peripheral nerves. That is because of the unique composition of peripheral nerves with various cells and connective tissues. So peripheral nerves have various biomechanical properties. In this video, we are going to explore into the biomechanical properties of peripheral nerve one by one. Our strategy here would be, we will see what is peripheral nerve, then we will see the structure and function of peripheral nerve, and finally we will move on to the biomechanical properties, and lastly we will discuss about the pathomechanics of peripheral nerve. If you wish to watch only any specific topic, time codes are there in the descriptions and the comment box. Please check on to that. Let us now focus on the biomechanics of peripheral nerves. Yes, biomechanics of peripheral nerve. Do you know what is peripheral nerve? We know that a brief introduction, okay? We know that the nervous system is divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system, right? Nervous system is divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. You know that central nervous system includes brain and your spinal cord. This is all just general anatomy which you have studied earlier, brain and spinal cord. And peripheral nervous system includes somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Somatic and autonomic nervous system, right? Yes, very good. Somatic nervous system is again divided into somatosensory and sensory nervous system, okay? And autonomic nervous system is again divided into, what is that? You know that is the sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. This is a brief structure of the nervous system, right? And this somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system, or somatosensory, sensory, sympathetic and parasympathetic, together forms the peripheral nerves. The peripheral nerves. Okay, the peripheral nerves. Yes. So if you have a question on biomechanics of peripheral nerve, you can describe this in this manner, with focusing a bit more onto the general anatomy or neuroanatomy of the nervous system. Then we should know about the peripheral nerve. So now we proceed on to our important topic, or our focus of interest, that is the peripheral nerves. Alright? Yes. The peripheral nerves. Good. The peripheral nerves. What do you mean by peripheral nerves? What are peripheral nerves? Peripheral nerves are the continuation of the neurons that are situated in your central nervous system, or these are neurons, or these are axons of nerves which has the cell body inside your brain or spinal cord. That means you know about the general structure of the nerve like this manner, okay? The dendrites, axon terminal, okay? So all these nerves has the nerve cell body inside the central nervous system, that means the brain or the spinal cord, and they have this axon extending to our body, to the organs, to the limbs, etc. Okay, and this structures which has the cell body or the nucleus inside the central nervous system is known as the peripheral nervous system or peripheral nerves, right? Okay, what you mean by what are the functions of these peripheral nerves? So it acts as a relay station between central nervous system and the organs, right? Yes, you have the central nervous system in the top, you have the organs here. So this relay station is made of your, what you call, the peripheral nerves. They act as a relay station, okay? They are the continuation of central nervous system, right? They are the continuation of central nervous system. Very good, right? Central nervous system. They transmit signals, okay? You know that from brain the signals comes, and from the spinal cord signals comes, and it moves to your limbs or organs that are carried by your peripheral nerves. From the organs or tissues or cells, signals are again retransmitted to the central nervous system, that is also carried out by your peripheral nerves. So you have the afferent nerves and efferent nerves, right? Yes. So these are the general function of peripheral nerves. So what are the functions of peripheral nerves? Peripheral nerves act as a relay station. They are the direct continuation of the central nervous system, and finally they help in the transmission of signals to the central nervous system back, and from the central nervous system to the effector organs. So this is the general function of peripheral nerves or peripheral nervous system. Now we need to see what are peripheral nerves. So peripheral nerves, I told you, are the axons who have their neurons or who have their cell body inside the central nervous system, right? That's a peripheral nerve. And peripheral nerves do not just contains the axons, but they contains the axons or the nerve fibers along with the connective tissue layer, along with the connective tissues, and finally blood vessels that nourishes them. These three structures together forms the peripheral nerves. So a peripheral nerve is not just a nerve fiber, but it contains nerve fibers which has the axons in the central nervous system. Then it has connective tissue, and finally it has the blood vessels in them. This together forms the central peripheral nervous system or peripheral nerves. Alright, that's our general introduction onto the peripheral nerves. The functions of the peripheral nerve we already saw. Yes, now we need to see what are the structure of the peripheral nerves. So the first point of discussion was function that we saw. First we had an introduction, then function. Now structure and function, structure of peripheral nerves. Now we need to know about the structure of the peripheral nerves. The structure of the peripheral nerves is actually the structure of the axons, yes, or the nerve fibers, structure of the connective tissue, and structure of the blood vessel, because these are the things that forms the nerves. So structure and function or composition of the nerves does includes the composition or function and structure of the nerve fibers, connective tissue, and the blood vessels. So let us discuss one by one. Yes. First we need to discuss the structure of the nerve fiber. The structure of the nerve fiber. Okay. When we discuss about the structure of the nerve fiber, you know that a nerve or a neuron is made up of, it has a dendrites, cell body, Nissel's granules, then the axons. And the nerve, you know that the nerve is containing the cell membrane, the cell body, the dendrites, the nucleus, and Nissel's granules inside this one, then the axon and axon terminal. You can mention about that when you discuss about that. But we are discussing about the structure of the nerve fiber, which is actually the axonal continuation from the central nervous system. The axonal continuation from the central nervous system. We are going to discuss about that. Okay. In axonal continuation, let us mention that when continuation of axons, okay, that has cell body inside CNS, right? That's the first point. Okay, now the second thing that we have to remember, these axons have some specialized structures like this. These all are quite known to you. These structures are known as the myelin sheath. The axon is lined by myelin sheath, so you have to mention that the myelin sheath lining in the axon. So in between the myelin sheath, you have some space that is known as nodes of Ranvier. Nodes of Ranvier. Yes, their myelin sheath is actually absent. So you have to mention about the nodes of Ranvier. These things are just anatomy, so neuroanatomy. So I'm just going fast with that, right? Then you have to mention about the myelin sheath, you have to mention about the nodes of Ranvier. Now how the signals are transmitted. You know that the signals jump from here to here, yes? That's how the signals are transmitted, not in the straight manner, okay? So that sort of conduction is known as one unique name. Is that, what is that? Yes, very good. That is a saltatory conduction. So the conduction inside the central nervous system or the nerve fibers are saltatory conduction. And you know that this is 10 times a better conduction than straight line. If it is passing straight line, it will reach 10 times or 10 times slower than the conduction to the saltatory conduction. So when you have explaining the structure of a nerve fiber, just explain about the cell membrane, so the cell body, the dendrites, the nucleus granules, and finally focus on to the axons. Axons are made up of or lined by a layer of cells known as a myelin sheath. Myelin sheath contains a cells known as Schwann cells. Schwann cells, okay? Myelin sheath contains a cells known as Schwann cells, okay? And in some spaces, myelin sheath are absent, and that is known as the nodes of Ranvier, quite known to all of us. And the conduction method in the central nervous system is a saltatory conduction. You have to just mention that, right? And that is 10 times faster than other sorts of conduction. So we discussed in brief about the structure and function of the nerve fiber. First thing in the peripheral nerves. I told you peripheral nerves is divided into or made up of nerve fibers, connective tissue, and blood vessels. Now we will move on to the blood vessels. No, sorry, the connective tissue. The connective tissue covering, okay? Connective tissue, very good, very good. The connective tissue, yes. What you mean by the connective tissue covering of the nerves, okay? Before that, I want to tell you the nerve fibers. For example, let us have a cross section of a peripheral nerve, right? If you have a cross section of a peripheral nerve, you will see a lot of structures like this, okay? These are individual peripheral nerve bundles, okay? These are individual peripheral nerve bundles. Inside that, you will have a lot of structures, again circle-like structures. Sorry, I will use some other color for a better understanding. You have a circle structures like this. These are known as the nerve fascicles or nerve bundles, okay? Nerve bundles or fascicles, okay? You see that? And inside that you have the axons, a numerous number of axon fibers, and along with other connective tissues, axons will be here. So this is how a nerve is organized, okay? Now we are focusing on the connective tissue. Let us move on to that. We have the nerve fibers like this, right? This, yes, very good. And the connective tissue inside the central nervous peripheral nerves is epineurium, perineurium, and entoneurium. So these are the three connective tissues inside the peripheral nerves, right? So these are the three nerve fibers or connective tissues inside the peripheral nerves. Now what do you mean by epineurium? Okay, I told you that nerve fibers are arranged together as a bundle, and this bundle is together covered by a connective tissue. That connective tissue is called the epineurium. This bundle can be called as fascicles. In muscles, we have muscle fibers are arranged as myofibrils, fascicles, sarcolemma, sarcoplasm, etc. Similarly, you have here fascicles. So this is a fascicle. This blue colored ones are fascicles. This one is the nerve bundle. Okay, these are the fascicles and these are the nerve bundles. The outer black color shows the nerve bundle. Alright. Now, what do you mean by epineurium? Epineurium is the outermost covering of the nerve, which covers the entire nerves. It's outermost covering and it covers the entire nerve. That means it lines the nerve fiber or nerve bundle. So it is a covering that covers the nerve bundle as a whole. So epineurium is a covering that covers the nerve bundle or nerve fiber as a whole. So this red coloring shows your epineurium. That is your epineurium. That is the outermost covering. Okay. Now you have each fascicles. So each fascicles are lined by a covering, and that is known as perineurium. Perineurium. Okay. Now each axons are covered or interlined by a covering, and that is known as your endoneurium. Should I repeat it again? I believe yes. Yes, that is the entire nerve bundle is covered by a covering that is known as outer neurium. Inside, just below that, you have a fascicles, and each fascicles are covered by a covering that is known as the perineurium. And the last one is the endoneurium, which covers individual axons or lines the gap between the individual axons. Right? So nerve fiber may be made up of a lot number of axons, and this is the general connective tissues that covers the peripheral nerves. Alright. Now we need to see in detail a bit more about these coverings. That is the perineurium, epineurium and endoneurium. The first one is the perineurium. Okay. Perineurium is the outermost layer. Okay. Outermost layer. It covers the entire nerve. It covers the entire nerve, right? You know that it covers the entire nerve, and it is a loose covering. It is a loose covering. Now we are seeing the biomechanical properties. Biomechanical properties. It is a loose covering and gives softness to the nerve. Softness to nerve. It is a loose covering and gives softness to the nerve. That's a function. And finally, it protects the internal structure from the load. External load, when it is applied to the nerve, it is being protected by the epineurium. Protects internal structures. Internal structure of nerve. This is the biomechanical function of epineurium. And finally, it contributes to tensile strength. Finally, it contributes to tensile strength of the nerve. Right? These are the biomechanical function of epineurium. And in layers where, in the body where nerves are completely exposed, you have a greater covering of the epineurium. So as the protection of the nerve fiber is the main function of epineurium. Alright? Yes. Now we move on to perineurium. What are the functions of perineurium? Good. Let us see about that. Perineurium. The perineurium is the second structure. Perineurium is the second structure. Okay. It covers the fascicles. I told you it covers the fascicles. And it differentiates external from internal environment. Yes. That is, it differentiates nerve fiber or nerve fascicles from the external environment and internal environment. So it acts as a barrier. It acts as a barrier between external and internal environment. It acts as a barrier between external and internal environment. Since there is this perineurium connection or perineurium lining, the ionic structure or the charges or the ionic nature of the nerve is always maintained. Otherwise, it will get distributed into the external spaces. When we saw this one like this, we had only 4 nerves, but this all are the connective tissues. So when this nerve is not having this perineurium, this fascicles is not having the charges or ions inside that can escape into the extracellular space. So that is protected by your perineurium. That is, it acts as a barrier and helps in the maintenance of ionic environment. So that is the biomechanical function of perineurium. Once again, it covers the fascicles, differentiate external from the internal environment, act as a barrier and provides ionic environment or maintains the ionic environment inside the nerves. right? And now we have the last one, that is our what do you call entoneurium. That is our entoneurium. Entoneurium, which is the innermost layer of the nerve fiber. It is the innermost layer of the nerve fiber, right? Innermost layer. The function is what is the function of this innermost layer? What can be the function of innermost layer? It maintains the internal structure of nerve fiber. It maintains the internal structure of the nerve. It's the internal structure, and it is made up of fibroblast, collagen, type 1 and type 2 collagen, etc. The internal structure and internal pressure inside the nerve. So these are the biomechanical properties of the connective tissue layer of the nervous system. That is the perineurium, entoneurium and epineurium. You just have to mention briefly. You don't have to mention the anatomy, but you have to mention the biomechanical properties of 3 of these structures. Right? Very good. And now we move on to the last structure, or last structure we should discuss. That is the blood vessels. Okay, you know that the nerve fiber is richly abundant in blood vessels. It has a rich abundance of blood vessels. They are provided by segmental arteries. Okay, and this segmental arteries reaches the epineurium, the outermost covering. It reaches the epineurium, and inside the nerve fiber you can see a lot of anastomosis between different arteries. So that ultimate aim is nourishment of the nerve. So that better action potential is created, the ions are transmitted, and each and every structures are being nourished in an equal manner. So nerve fiber, this is just a brief discussion, we just want to know about only that. It is richly abundant in blood vessels, and segmental arteries are the ones that supplies the nerve fiber, and it is reaching up to the epineurium, and then there are a lot of anastomosis. Do you know why we study all about this? Why we study? Do you think that this is just waste? No, it is actually because when there is some biomechanical changes to the peripheral nerves, the first structure, one of the structure that is altered is the blood vessels. When proper blood supply is not reaching the brain, or blood vessels are strained or compressed, what happens? There is ischemic changes in the nerve, there is damage to the nerve blood flow, and there is damage to the nerve itself. So when we discuss about the biomechanical property, we will come back to the blood vessels, we will come back to the connective tissue, we will go back to the structure of the nerve. That is why we discuss about the connective tissues inside the nerves. So we had a discussion about the structure of nerve, where we studied about the nerve fiber structure and function, the structure and function of the connective tissue, and structure and function of the blood vessels. That's all about the different structure of the blood vessels and the different connective tissues. Since time is not permitting, we'll wind up our discussion, and in part 2, in the next video, we will discuss about the biomechanical properties, where we have a lot of properties like a reaction to tensile strength, reaction to compression injuries, and degeneration and regeneration of the nerve fibers. Until then, stay tuned, and if you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe to my channel so that you are aware about all the latest information that we share in this channel.